Good morning. So this is going to be the condensed version of my linking words lesson. So we're going to start off. Good morning, students. Today's lesson is going to be a continuation of your book on Owen and Mizzy. You read this with Miss Maddie last week, and today we're going to work with your elbow partners and we're going to look for quotes in the story. So for those of you who don't know what a linking word is, a linking word connects ideas within a text. Authors choose certain linking words to help us understand the people, the events, and the content of a story. So in our text today, we're going to look for linking words. Linking words connect sentences, paragraphs, or ideas within a text. So I made you a little cheat sheet. This was supposed to be a poster, just so for scale size, I wrote it on a piece of paper. So your cheat sheet, it's linking word examples. So some examples are first, next, then, and, because, after that, finally, and a while later. Authors choose specific linking words when they're writing to create an image for the reader that's very clear so that you can picture in your head what's going on and you're not confused as to what ideas they're trying to get across to you. So, we're going to read a quote together and we are going to find the linking words in this quote. So, the first quote we're going to read, it says, "Over the next few days, Mizzy continued to crawl away and Owen continued to follow him." This might be a little easier if you write the quote down. You can see what I'm talking about. So our first linking word, it's not even a word, it's actually a phrase. So over the next few days, that's going to tell us our first idea. The next linking word we have is and. So let's look at this a little more in depth. So our first linking phrase is over the next few days, and this is telling us a time span as to when this happened. So it's saying over the next few days, Mizzy continued to crawl away. It's telling you what Mizzy did first. So then you have a comma and you have and. And is on your cheat sheet, on your linking words cheat sheet. That's one of your words, is and. And Owen continued to follow him. So who is it saying or doing these things? So the first one, it's Mizzy. So Mizzy is your first idea, or your first character. And your second character is Owen. It's telling you what Owen's doing. So Owen's going to be your second character and your second thought. So, what did Mizzy do? Mizzy continued to crawl away. So that's telling you what she did. This is the linking word that's telling you what Mizzy did. And what did Owen do? Owen continued to follow him. By him, he continued to follow Mizzy. So this gives you an idea as to what a linking word looks like in your text. So this is the part, just to condense a little bit more to explain to you what the students would be doing. The students read the quote that's on the board with me. We go over it, and I ask students to share their thoughts as to why they think the author chose this certain word, and what linking words did the author use, just to get them introduced to what a linking word is. So, continuing. So, let's look at some examples of linking words and phrases and why an author may choose them in a text. We're going to continue this quote. Over the next few days, Mizzy continued to crawl away and Owen continued to follow him. But sometimes it was Owen who walked away from Mizzy and Mizzy would follow. Bit by bit, Mizzy grew friendlier. So students, the author chooses the words over the next few days. This shows the reader that Owen had to be persistent to get Mizzy's attention. It's not just telling you what Owen was doing, it's telling you why Owen did it. So the author also chose the word continued. He continued to follow him. This also shows that Owen is very persistent. This is important because the reader sees that Owen didn't follow Mizzy once or twice. He does it over and over and over again. This is also why your vocabulary words are very important, because you have to read them over and over and over again. The author shifts the focus of the paragraph by saying, but sometimes. This phrase shows the reader that Owen is not only doing the following in his relationship. Finally, the author chooses the phrase bit by bit. Who knows what bit by bit means? That means little by little, just in case you didn't know what bit by bit means. It describes Mizzy accepting Owen. Mizzy didn't accept Owen right away. She took a little while to warm up to him. She took a little while to figure out why Owen was following her, but once she figured it out, she was okay with it. He didn't just wake up one morning and decide to be friends. It happened in very, very small steps. So, to explain some more, students here are understanding the ideas in the paragraphs and how they're connected, and this is a group activity, so this is guided instruction. The students understand that the authors choose specific words and phrases to create vivid pictures for the reader. So, continuing on, I'm going to pass out what is called a linking words and phrases worksheet. So, on this worksheet, we have our first quote that we went over together. At the top, it says words or phrases, so this is where you're going to find your linking words or phrases in your quote. The ideas that are connected together, and the importance for the reader. So as a class, we're going to read the example. Word or phrase, over the next few days. Over the next few days, Mizzy crawled away, and the second idea is Owen followed Mizzy. So that's what we just went over in our first quote. The importance for the reader. So Owen followed Mizzy for a long time, not just for a few minutes. It helped me see that Owen was persistent. So this is not just, this is what you think the author is saying. Not there's no right or wrong answer. Why you think the author used these phrases. So, look at your linking words and phrases handout. I've completed the first row for you as an example. So we examined it together. This is an example for you to look for in your textbook. So, which linking phrase did I choose? They can look and they can see which phrase I chose, which ideas that I chose to link together, and why I chose it was important for the reader. Okay, the next thing we were going to do is called a gallery walk. There are going to be quotes that were taped up along the wall, and students take turns with their elbow partners looking at these quotes on the wall, and they had a chance to decipher each quote. So I still put these up on the wall, so we're going to look at them. I have to pick up my iPad, so it may shift a little bit. So just to give you a rundown as to how it would have gone in the classroom. Would have divided students into pairs based on their tables. So, students, in a minute, you will walk around the room and you'll read the quotes displayed on the posters. Record your thoughts on your linking words and phrases chart. You may discuss the questions with your students at the posters, but you got to keep it quiet, keep it on track, on topic. So we're going to move around the room. They move at their own pace. They have their clipboards. They write on their worksheet. So this would take a lot of time for the students to do. So we're going to take just a few minutes. This is going to be a very short video because a lot of the activity was the kids getting up, walking around, writing down their thoughts, etc. So we're just going to make the best of it, and we're going to do it like this. So the quotes would have been placed like this around the room. I know it's kind of hard to see. So this one says, hours went by and the anxious crowds of people who gathered to watch feared that the hippo would not be saved. At last, the rescuers towed the baby hippo toward land. So their second quote, for days the people of Malindi tried to chase the hippos back up the river, but the hippos enjoyed grazing in grasses along the shore and in the villagers' yards. So this was to save some time. Instead of the students having to pick their own quote out of the book, we were going to do this gallery walk. So they would walk around. They have their chart to fill out. So we're going to come back together. This is about 15 to 20 minutes later after the students have talked about it, and we're going to discuss it as a class. So, to go over our quotes, the first quote that we had was, "Hours went by, and the anxious crowds of people who gathered to watch feared that the hippo would not be saved. At last, the rescuers towed the baby hippo towards land." So, I know two phrases that I can use in this quote. The first would be, hours went by. Let's move my stuff here. Hours went by. So, hours went by, and the anxious crowds of people who gathered to watch feared that the hippo would not be saved. So we're going to get a different color pencil. Real quick, Miss Abigail's not very prepared right now. So we're going to get this different color pencil to underline our ideas. So that's going to be what we're going to be writing in our boxes. So, hours went by. What happened after the hours went by? The anxious crowds of people who gathered to watch feared that the hippo would not be saved. But we have another linking phrase in this quote. That next linking phrase would be at last, because that's going to link your second idea together. So, at last, what happened at last, class? The rescuers towed the baby hippo towards land. So, we're going to highlight that in blue. So, this is our first quote. We have two linking phrases in this one quote. Hours went by and at last. So, after the hours went by, the crowds of people gathered because they thought the hippo would not be saved. So our second is at last. So what happened at last? The rescuers towed the baby hippo towards land. So we have another quote from our gallery walk. This quote says, "For days the people of Malindi tried to chase the hippos back up the river, but the hippos enjoyed grazing the grasses along the shore and in the villagers' yards." So there's also two linking words in this quote. What are they? The first would be for days. Just telling you how long this happened. The second would be but. Just linking your second idea together. So what happened for days? For days, the people of Malindi tried to chase the hippos back up the river. That's how long it took them. It didn't take them an hour. It didn't take them one day. It took them days. Because, why? But the hippos enjoyed grazing the grasses along the shore and in the villagers' yard. That's why it took them days to do this. So class, what we're going to do is we're going to fill in our charts, and I'm going to ask you why you think this is important to the text. So, let's start with our 4 days quote. So, our words and phrases. In our box, we would write down 4 days, dot, 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 because we can't fit all that text after what happened for 4 days. So instead of you putting that comma right there, just put some periods behind it. So this lets you know that you're continuing your thought. So your next linking word is but. So you can write but underneath it. It's 4 days, but that's your 2 linking words. So just to shorten it, you don't have to write that big long sentence in there, just so we get the main idea as to why you think, let me correct myself. So what ideas are connected together? Don't write the big long sentence, just condense it a little bit. So, for days, the people tried to chase the hippos up the river. That's what you write. 4 days, the people tried to chase the hippos back up the river. All right, so that's for 4 days. What happened with the but? The hippos enjoyed grazing. That's all you need to put. You don't have to put that where they were grazing. Just put, that's the reason that it took so many days for the people to chase the hippos back up the river. It's because they enjoyed grazing. And for those of you who don't know what grazing means eating grass. All right, so we have our first 2 ideas filled in. 4 days, the people tried to chase the hippos back up the river, but the hippos enjoyed grazing. So, why is this important to the reader? Why do you think the author put this in the text? One reason was the villagers were unsuccessful because the hippos liked the grass around the river. And hippos are very stubborn. If they like the grass around the river, they're not going to be so easily pushed back up the river because they're going to want to continue eating that grass. So, we can write that in our importance to the reader. The villagers were unsuccessful because the hippos enjoyed the grass around the river. So, we finished our first. So now let's move on to our second. So our second words and phrases would be the quote. Hours went by, and the anxious crowds of people who gathered to watch feared that the hippo would not be saved. At last, the rescuers towed the baby hippo towards land. So, our first word or phrase would be, hours went by. Put your 3 periods behind it. What's your next? The next would be at last. This is at the end of your sentence. So, hours went by. What happened in those hours that went by? Anxious crowds thought Owen wouldn't be saved. And what does anxious mean, class? Anxious means worried and nervous. So this crowd, they were scared that the baby hippo wouldn't be saved. So it's important to say these crowds were anxious because it tells us as the reader what it was like to be there and what it was like to see this baby hippo trying to get saved. So anxious crowds thought Owen wouldn't be saved. So, at last, what happened in the retrospect? Owen got saved. So we just put in our second, Owen was saved. So why is this important to our text readers? These 2 phrases show that a lot of time passed while they were trying to save Owen. What does that mean? So hours went by. If it takes hours to save somebody, what do you think the people were like that were trying to save Owen? They were scared, they were anxious, they were nervous, and at last also means that finally this happened. So it's important to our text because it took a long time to save Owen. And whenever they were finally able to save Owen, everybody was relieved because it was not easy. So in our importance to the reader, we can put these two phrases show that a lot of time passed while they were trying to save Owen. It was not easy. So these two phrases show that saving Owen took a lot of time. It was not easy. All right. So class, we just finished our linking words and phrases worksheet. So you can put this in your take-home folder. You can put it on the side of your study materials. So we're just going to wrap up this lesson. Students would put this in their take-home folders to take home to study for their test. Let's see. So to wrap up this lesson, in this lesson you learned Owen and Mizzy became friends over Owen continuing to follow Mizzy for several days. You also identified linking words and phrases authors use to connect ideas in a text. So we're going to review our linking word examples one more time. So first, next, then, and, because, after that, finally, a while later. These words are just telling you what's happening in a story, and it's giving you an idea as to how it's happening, the time that's passing, the feelings that are happening, etc. So this would be my lesson on linking words.